All right, Lisa, welcome. Welcome. I can finally hear you, which is great. I wanted to have a live stream because I thought it would be interesting to have a discussion with another person as opposed to this YouTube videos that I've been making. Welcome everybody in the chat. My name's Chris. I'm a professor who's slowly being beaten down by academia, and I'm buttressing my mental health by picking up expensive hobbies. So that's why I'm here. Lisa, why are you? Who are you?
I am actually Chris's grad student. He pays me to do something. Hopefully we'll get to that. So yeah, I am a 5th year grad student with Chris Herrig, the guy next to me.
5th year. And I shouldn't ask this, but I feel like I have to. You're hopefully graduating soon.
That is the plan. Summer. To graduate in summer.
Right. And so can you give me like a 1 or 2 sentence of what you work on? Like, what is your field of study?
So previously I was working with GRACE satellite data to better understand the water loading signal in the Amazon, and I was using GPS data from the same region to kind of confirm the water loading levels that we were seeing in the Amazon. So right now I'm using the same method that we use to map those water levels to map temperature in the United States. So I'm working with a whole suite of temperature station data and trying to make it into something that we can hopefully use to, do some assessment of how we're doing global warming and climate change wise, and maybe, make some predictions.
Right on. Sounds interesting. So
pretty great.
So the way I thought this would sort of go is I have a guest, Lisa. I thought I would ask a couple questions about you, and then just to sort of give some background, and then we'd like go into the topic of discussion for today, which is sort of the choice of going to grad school, like how people make that decision. How does that sound?
It sounds great, man. I'm really pumped to be on your show. I just feel so starstruck right now.
We have a large viewership.
You've had a lot of really wild people on this show too. I think you had President Biden on this show last week, actually. So tough act to follow.
Yeah. No, you're an inaugural guest.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, we could, yeah. The first guest. Also, we should probably say chat can chime in at any time with any questions that they might have. We're going to try and get to any questions that chat has.
Yes, and I should say, like, if you have questions during the topic of the whatever stream, ask them. We're also doing Q&A at the end if people have questions. I love how chatbot tells me to go to my own website to look at my commands. It's helpful. All right. So Lisa, so when did you sort of decide that you wanted to go into science? Like as a career, basically.
It was the second best thing that I felt good at. The first thing that I felt good at, my parents weren't super into me going into, so it just it made more sense at the time for me to go into science, and I still really like science. So I tried to do pretty well in science classes. I ended up at an internship at the National Cancer Institute at Fort Detrick my senior year of high school, where I worked on in a microbiology lab, and was sort of like, yeah, this is pretty rad. The microbiology thing, not so much. I absolutely hate living things that live in water and disgusting, very gross. But I kind of realized I was like, this is something I can do, and this is something I wanna aim for, just be a PI or whatever at some point.
So, what kind of age are we talking about? Like high school, or like before your decision, before your choice of college and major and stuff like that, or like in college, or what time period are we talking about?
It was definitely high school. I had a teacher who was pretty outstanding, who kind of went above and beyond, even beyond like what I see most college professors doing, as far as getting us interested and asking our own questions, and like forging our own path in science. It involved a lot of, so it was a science research class, and we took care of tilapia and sturgeon, and there was some like bay grass studies, but it was a lot of caring for fish, which I was not into, and she thought that was hysterical, that I was such a germaphobe, but she at the same time really thought was an amazing mentor to me. And so yeah, I'd say it definitely was started in high school, because as a kid I had like a very a will to answer all the questions right, and get the A on all the worksheets, and make sure I was doing it the way the teacher wanted. And this teacher I was like, am I doing this the right way? And she was like, I don't know, do you feel like, is this, it's up to you. And I was like, oh. That's what science was, and I was really into it. That's what science is not knowing, and I had never experienced that before, and I found that it was actually something I felt really comfortable with. Was just seeing what worked, and making it your own and stuff.
So did you know? So entering college is how I'm going to summarize that.
Yeah.
So did you know?
Yeah.
Did you know at that time that you wanted to do earth science?
No.
So when did you get to the earth sciences part?
Oh, okay, that's a good way to put it. The earth sciences, I think, was when I was rudderless in my sophomore year of college. I just sort of took an array of gen eds, and that I was going to have to take anyway. And I took environmental science, and I was like, oh yeah, I love this. Because I had bounced from neuroscience to astronomy to information sciences, and then I kind of fell back into what I knew, and I really, really enjoyed it. So I just stuck with it.
So I sort of blanked out in the beginning of that sentence. So is this early in the first half of college?
Yeah, sophomore year. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So was this before or after you transferred? Because you were at Rochester.
Yeah.
And then
I started off at Rochester University. I was getting a degree in biology, and they to get in a lot of money, and it's you do you with the money you have, but the the labs I was working with, even though they were freshman labs, I was using the grossest equipment. It was the grossest labs, rooms. I was like, I'm gonna go to a school that has an excuse to have really poor equipment, so I went to a public university in Maryland, University of Maryland, Baltimore County.
Okay, and then you sort of switched majors around the same time?
Yeah, so I was, that was when I was rudderless, but eventually found environmental science again.
So, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, go ahead. I think you're going to ask about that.
There's more questions that I'm going to get to, but, the reason that I wanted to do the choosing a grad school topic is because we're roughly a few months out from when the application process goes on. So over the summer, people are typically emailing professors. In the fall, they're putting together applications, getting letters of reference, stuff like that. And so that's the admission cycle for fall 2022. Starts in fall
Yeah.
2021. So, walk me through your decision on like going to grad school. So when did you? When were you sort of making this decision? Was it in junior year, senior year? You know.
So the decision wasn't exactly made in like my junior-ish year, but it was around my junior year that I had this realization that environmental science was cool and all, and I like trees are neat and like photosynthesis is kind of cool, but I was much more interested in the like earth sciences side of things, the geology side of things, and my school didn't offer any of that. There was one teacher there that was a fluvial geomorphologist, and he became my advisor, and I was sort of like, this isn't, I'm debating, transferring again to another school so I can actually get some geology background. And he was like, don't do that. He was like, take a bunch of math, make sure you have a lot of math because it's going to help you moving forward, and stay here. And then, if you really want to, I think it wasn't him, it was another advisor who said, if you want to take those classes, go to grad school, where they'll pay you to take the classes. So that was kind of the moment where it was like, oh, I'm not done learning. Like, I need to go to grad school. So that was sort of the impetus, was realizing that I'm not done in academia. I've got some more stuff I want to learn.
So when is it a different time from when you knew that was an option, or did you learn grad school as an option and then kind of decide you wanted to go around the same time, or did you learn that was an option earlier, or like?
I think it was around the same time I was encountering people who were going to grad school, and when they talked to me about it, it was like they were talking to me in like another language. They were like, you got to start, emailing potential advisors like the day before and sending an app, like the summer before you apply, and and you should visit. And I was like, what? I had no idea how to even go through the process. So it was definitely like junior year where I started to understand that grad school was this thing that was actually attainable to me.
And you talked about this a little bit, but I'm curious, what were your influences at the time that you were making this decision? Like, you had mentioned that one professor was like, oh, you could take these are, you could go to grad school and take these same classes, for example.
Yeah, I mean, you said where my
yeah, like, was there a person who encouraged you to go or apply, or was there were there other students who were doing it and you were like asking them about it, or I'm interested in what was influencing you around this decision.
Yeah. So there was only 2 students that I interacted with in my classes that were going to grad school. I did also interact with some grad students, but they were very, very much on the same level as the undergrads in a lot of ways, except they also seemed to live where the classes, like in the department, where their offices were. Probably the biggest, influence was probably my internship with the Southern California Earthquake Center, which I did between my junior and senior year. So I was applying to a lot of REUs, research experiences for undergraduates, and then things that were REU, like similar to REUs, which was the SCEC Summer Undergraduate Research Experience, the SHORE program. So I worked with Dr. Gareth Funning at the University of University of California, Riverside. And basically what we did was went around the California desert in the Mojave Desert in the dead of summer and surveyed GPS stations. So got updated positions from these GPS stations. So, and I was like, this is awesome, because I was just like, I just got to hike a lot and like walk around and see the desert, and then do like a little bit of like research and learning about GPS and how it works. I spent a lot of time with his grad student, John Conrad. I'm not sure where he is now, but spent a lot of time with his grad student, who was sort of very encouraging. Definitely had a lot of advice. So, yeah, I would say. And then Gareth Gareth Funning, obviously was very. He was the one who was like, just go to grad school and get paid to take those classes. Don't transfer. So.
Are there a lot of grad students that are hanging around SCEC in the summer? Or is it a primarily undergrad program? Or
well, SCEC is based at the University of Southern California. So they have their own special program there, and some of it is communication. So they actually have people making videos for SCEC, like field trip type videos for SCEC, if that makes sense. Like filming us going on field trips and stuff, and doing communication stuff for SCEC. But the SHORE program, it placed undergraduates with people, at University of Southern California, or, at various places in Southern California. I think Sally McGill, is that her name? She had a lot. She's a San Bernardino, I think. Sally McGill. She has a lot of SHORE interns.
Okay.
Yeah. Did that answer the question?
Well, I was, you'd mentioned one of Gareth's students, and so I'm wondering how much interaction you had with current grad students before you applied to grad school.
By the time I started interacting a lot with them, because I was a super senior, so I'd gone past my 4th year and was spending an extra semester at college. That was when I started to interact with grad students. Before then, I hadn't really.
So,
I should say grad students at my own university.
Okay. So when you go through this application process, do you think you had a clear idea of what grad school would be like at that time? No. There was actually the longest time where I was like, I have to pay for some of this, right? Like, there has to be some money that I have to put into this. It wasn't until I actually sat down to start applying that I was like, oh, so this is how this works. So was that, when you say sit down and applying, are you getting this information from departmental websites? I should say, like, well, yeah, like, no, I guess not when I started applying. Obviously, that was in the fall. When I sat down to start, emailing potential advisors was when I started to understand what it was. Did you...
What it was?
So short answer is like no. Like, compared to what you know now, your idea of what grad school was like at the time you were applying was different.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I didn't really know what it was going to be like at all. I had really no clue how it was going to be structured. I guess I knew I was going to have to like take classes and like work with an advisor, but I don't really know the ins and outs.
So did you have an idea of how it would benefit you? Like, for example, you needed a degree to get a specific job you wanted or something?
There was that for sure. I definitely didn't have an idea of what I wanted to do. I probably would have, if you'd asked me then, I probably would have been like, oh, I want to be a professor. I do not want to be a professor now. At the time, it was mostly like, I feel like I have had, I desperately wanted the chance to study the geosciences for, the past 3 years. And I just really want to learn all this stuff that I see everyone else doing. And I want to do some of that too.
Yeah, I'm really curious, like, what are people's motivations for going to grad school? Like, in the sense of, have they strongly linked it to a career? or strongly linked it to a job, or do people not really think of it that far in advance?
Yeah, no, I did not think of it as in terms of like, oh, a career. This is what I want a career. I really couldn't have even conceived of what I would have done besides even being a professor.
I mean, so I didn't do this myself. I didn't have any idea of for example, needing a degree to get a specific job or anything like that. There's a lot of things about my own, like, going into grad school where I'm just like, I would never have gotten into grad school today, like almost 20 years later. It's kind of funny because I feel like I didn't have a good motivation. Like, I think my personal statement was probably pretty weak because I like didn't know why I wanted to go to grad school.
I think I'd had enough, and I'd talked to my advisor enough, my undergrad advisor, and I'd sort of seen enough examples to know what they probably wanted to hear. Yeah, I don't even remember what my statement looked like now.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I mean, like, the typical things that go into it is like, what research experience do you have, things like this. But then there's supposedly sections on your motivation, and I feel like I just don't even remember what mine was because I don't think I had one.
No, I have no idea. I cannot remember for the life of me. What is a personal statement? That's a very esoteric question.
So, do you want to answer that one, or I can answer it?
I'll go for it, and then you can fill in, which I think is usually how we go about meetings. So the personal statement is sort of your motivation. It's you telling the grad school why you're a good choice, why you should be picked out of everyone else or whatever. Your background, your motivation. Ideally, like what you hope to do with your degree and what you hope to do as a grad student. The more specific, the better as far as what you hope to do in grad school is usually good, but you're just selling yourself in the personal statement, I think. Well, Chris, what is it to you?
Yeah, well, so literally you're writing like a 2-page document that gets submitted along with your application. And that document, as you say, it says it's a list of, for example, if you've had research experience, it gets listed and you describe what you did and sort of the skills that you picked up along the way. And then typically the last third of it is it's a here's why I want to go to grad school. And specifically it's why do I want to go to grad school at this university and this department, and typically like why I want to work with a specific person on the faculty in a certain research group. So you're explaining how that sort of aligns with either the skills you've picked up or the interests that you've developed in working in other labs or something like that. So I've been on the admissions committee a couple times, and we certainly get strong candidates, but sometimes you see candidates who don't have a reason why they're going to grad school, or at least they haven't articulated it at all. And so you're kind of just like, well, you haven't really convinced me like why you want to get in. Like, I don't know.
I will say one thing about the personal statement is it is not intended to be a rehashing of your resume. It's meant to be like, it's meant for you to like wax poetic about your experiences more or less, and just go into as much detail as you can on the pages. And you're just trying to give a human face to your application, basically. Yeah, it kind of sucks writing it because you have to sell yourself. You have to talk about why you're so great. And that's a hard thing to do for a lot of people. But yeah.
Yeah, they're typically written. I think most people have this problem is that they're typically written like people don't toot their own horn strong enough, and so when I write, like when I had to write statements like my tenure statement, for example, you have to say what are my accomplishments, and so you write it and you're like, well, this is really like I feel like I'm not being humble and I'm bragging too much, but then you give it to someone else to read and they're like, this is not nearly enough. It's not strongly enough about how great you are, kind of. It's like this weird thing that most people have.
Yeah. I think one idea that I just thought of that might be good is reading a letter of recommendation that someone wrote for you. Because people who write letters of recommendation generally have a lot of experience doing it. And the times I've read my letters of recommendation, I've been like, whoa, this is me? like that, like, make it glowing.
Yeah, so I had, on the job market, I had a cover letter that I used for a couple of years. And eventually I would periodically give my packet to people to read and give me feedback. And eventually I gave it to someone who was like, adjusted some of the language and sent it back to me, and I was like, this sounds like I'm arrogant, basically. And they were like, that's what you need. Yeah. And I was a little like weirded out by it, but I don't know, I kept most of it, I guess. So
yeah.
So at the point at this point, like when you're applying to grad school, right? Did you feel that you had what was your strategy for applying? And did you feel like you had a good strategy?
I think I had a good strategy. Obviously the first thing you do is identify people you want to work with. And I think Grace kind of has brought this up a little bit. How do you go about identifying potential advisors? What I wanted to do was very, like, I was kind of all over the place. I wanted to maybe do geomorphology. I wanted to maybe do geodesy and, GPS. So I kind of applied to the gamut.
Yeah, half the departments I applied to were planetary science departments. And I wanted to work with planetary science people. Or I thought I did.
Yeah. So I applied to 5 schools. Which felt comfortable for me. I know a lot of people who apply to a lot more. But I would say that the way I went about finding these advisors was actually, I guess I really shot high. I Googled best geoscience graduate programs, and like U.S. World News and College Board or whatever makes lists of that based on probably however much money they give College Board a year. But I was like, I'll start here. So I basically just sort of went down the list and was like, okay, this is like, this department seems really, really good and kind of aligned with what I'm looking for. This person at this department seems like they would be a good fit as far as what I was already interested in. So I started with the top 10 or like the top 20 or whatever, which I think I skipped down. I skipped like the first like 5 and was like, okay, we're gonna start at 6 and like see what's good. So once I'd done that, basically the next step is reading, like scouring their website. So figuring out what they'd worked on. I didn't know what a CV was really at the time, so you could read their CV. It would probably be really good. And also reading their papers, which can be a slog, but it's super, super important to read their papers because you want to try and, because you're going to email them and be like, hey, I've been, looking at your website and reading your papers. I'm an undergrad here. Don't tell them your GPA. I think I did that for the first couple of emails. Don't tell them your GPA. just be like, hey, I'm a student here. I'm applying to grad schools. I really am interested in the work you do. I really, really like, I'm particularly interested in, cite something that they did in this paper or some project that they worked on that's on their website. I feel like I would really be a lot out of working with you. And, you send emails like that out, and then you get, a lot of times you get silence, right? Basically because professors are really bad at emailing or, responding to emails, so you follow up after a week, and that's totally fine to do. You get silence, you get people who are like, I cannot take you on as a grad student, I'm sorry. I had one person who was like, yeah, we can talk on the phone, and then on the phone was like, I can't take any new grad students. I was like, I am overwhelmed with stress about this. How is this supposed to help me? And then, you might get people who are just like, I don't know if I'm a good fit. That probably won't happen. But sometimes they'll just be honest and just be like, I don't know if I'm, exactly what, you might be looking for. What was the original question? Because I could keep going.
What was your strategy for applying to grad schools? You sort of hit it.
Right.
I mean, you mentioned the ones that you were targeting. But so, like, did that process start over the summer?
Yeah.
With all the emailing and...
At the beginning of the summer, I emailed probably about a dozen professors at various institutions, and was, they were the ones that I had, identified as, somewhere I felt I could get into, somewhere I felt I could, work with, and all of them, I got nothing back, nothing that was like, you should apply. I was devastated. I went to my advisor. I was like, called, I was like, can we talk on the phone? I'm like, I'm devastated. I called him. I was like, I'm doing something wrong. Like, nobody is responding. He was like, you have to keep going. You have to keep emailing people. I was like, are you serious? And then I did. And then literally the next 7 emails I sent, I got responses from each one, being helpful. So finally I started being, once they respond, it's usually, oh, I'd love to talk to you on the phone, So then you talk on the phone. One person I talked to, Anne something at CU Boulder, was like, you should be applying for fellowships. And I was like, I don't know what those are. So I quickly learned what, the GRFP and the NDSEG were. I guess the NDSEG isn't the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. So I quickly learned what those were. So then that was added onto the load of things that I was going to have to do moving forward. So basically then it was just a matter of, once I eventually had outlined who I wanted to work with and, where. So I think I made a spreadsheet or something. And so basically then the next step was applying, notifying people who were going to write me letters of recommendation, writing a personal statement, showing it to my advisor, having him comment on it, rewriting it. The same thing with the fellowships, writing the fellowships, working through it with my advisor. There was no program that I knew of, I'm sure, that existed of, help with fellowship programs. I wish I had, had more knowledge of that beforehand, because I feel like there were probably resources I could have used. But it was basically just me and my advisor, figuring out what I was going to say to these people, what, and just getting it in, and hoping for the best.
So it sounds like your strategy was pretty good.
I like to think so.
I don't know, maybe 7 out of 10.
Oh, thank you. Hey, that's a C. C's get degrees.
No, I mean, I wouldn't call it a C. Average is a 5 out of 10.
Okay, fair enough.
So, I mean, I'm kind of wondering, is this Was this something your university was mentoring you to do, or was this something that you had a specific undergrad advisor who was helping you out, or like where did this mentorship come from in terms of this application process?
My university did not provide a whole lot of resources, or at least my department didn't provide a whole lot of resources. Neither did really my university. It was basically like I told my advisor I wanted to go to grad school, and he was like, "Okay, let's do it." Yeah, that was, and then there were other, obviously other undergrads, these two other undergrads that were currently applying who were sort of like, "Oh yeah, I did this, you'll want to do this." Yeah, so it was sparse. I'm sure there were resources though, I just didn't know about them.
So my university didn't do anything, but there was someone in my department when I was an undergrad who emailed all the undergrads and was like, I'll have, a 2-hour meeting with you guys if you want to hear about what the grad school application process is about and what it's like. And my graduating class only had 3 people in it, so there were like 4 people who showed up to this meeting. And yeah, he basically sat there for 2 hours and we asked him questions and he like told us about how we should do things basically. It was very informal and not structured at all or anything like that.
Yeah. Wish I had something like that, honestly.
It's kind of crazy to of those 4 people, 3 of us have PhDs, which is kind of funny.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I the 4th person I've lost touch with, so she could have a PhD. I don't actually know. Okay, so you're in your 5th year, sort of nearing the end of your PhD. Do you think your initial reasons for getting the PhD align with the outcomes of your PhD?
This is an interesting question. No. I think as far as it's hard to say that, or it's weird to say that because I'm kind of 3 years removed from taking classes, and taking those classes was kind of a big part of going to grad school. So yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah, I did. I got the instruction that I desperately wanted. I learned about, seismology and, plate tectonics and all the stuff that I was totally enamored by as an undergrad and was so frustrated that I couldn't learn about. So it was cool. But there was definitely a switch that happened where some of the excitement faded, and it definitely just was like it's just a job, I'm doing research and I'm trying to produce results that I'm trying to write, and so I can have a product that the university says good job, and then I leave, which is a lot like if you're working on a project at a corporation, you work for months to a year, and then your corporation's like, tight, nice work, and then you keep having the job. Obviously that's not the case here.
Yeah, so another way to ask that question is, if you were looking or wanted a certain career when you went into grad school, like, do you still want that same career, or has your outlook completely changed that the reasons why you decided to go to grad school are now very different than what you want to do with your degree?
Well, yeah. There definitely. I thought I was going to go into, a government job, like working in a research lab, like UNAFCO or IRIS or SCEC. Or, even working as a professor. I don't really see myself doing those things anymore. Mostly my aim is to get a decent, well-paying job somewhere at a place where I can just work 9 to 5. If it if it somewhat aligns with, what I've done in the past 5 years, that's super, super cool. But if it's just, a job where I'm sort of a code monkey using my computer software skills or whatever, that's fine too. Also, I came out really enjoying teaching, like teaching K through 12, mostly the high school ones, which was not something I expected at all. So I do also have that dream. I'm a little hesitant about it, though. Teachers don't kind of get the shit end of the stick a lot.
It depends on the state. Yes, they do get the short end of the stick a lot, but it also depends on a little bit on the state.
True.
Certainly in Arizona, they do not get paid. They were like 49th in the state of the states.
Yeah, I know. It's not good. I still think, I don't know, there's still a lot of stuff that's really pervasive. Anyway, that's not what we're talking about. I've come out on the other end. I certainly don't resent having gone to grad school. Obviously, you do a thing so that you can get the benefits of having done it, and I'm not really getting those benefits, right? Like I could do those things with a master's degree, or a master's degree in like teaching or software development, but I certainly am not upset that I have gone to grad school. I think it's been really, really rewarding.
So when you were making that decision to go to grad school, what information do you have now, or what do you know now that you kind of wish you would have known at that time when you were making a decision, or when you were doing your applications, or anything like that?
How much time?
That's a big question.
So, first off, the GRFP, the various fellowships exist that will pay your way for the first 1, 2, 3 years of your grad school, which is a big deal. It gives you a lot of autonomy. Also has the unique benefit of making you extremely desirable to literally any potential advisor, assuming that they're taking students. They really love it when you come with your own funding. I didn't have a whole lot of time. I submitted something that was not the work I could have done. So yeah, a little disappointed. Let's see. You try and find an advisor who has money to allow you to both TA and be on an RA. My advisor, when I got in, so I'm more or less co-advised by Chris and another professor here named Rick Bennett. So the first part of my PhD, I mostly worked with him, and I came in, and like exclusively as his student. And he had TA money, and he was, he didn't have RA money. He didn't have, a grant that he could pay me from, so I didn't have to teach or TA. So I was like, that's fine, because I didn't really know what that meant. So I became a TA for like 6 semesters until Chris, obviously pulled me out of the trenches and started providing me with some grant money. But yeah, that part of it is definitely really useful to know, that there is a chance that the advisor you get will not be able to put you in an RA the entire time you're there. I think Rick was going to be able to, but it wasn't on a project that I was interested in doing. Yeah, I can't really think of anything else right now, though, that I wish I'd known. Yeah.
Do you have any, it's sort of the same question as, like, do you have any specific advice for people deciding to go to grad school? Like, advice centered around making that decision. Like in an informed way, I suppose.
Well, get your master's first. This one thing I'd say I learned the hard way, so I'm going to emphasize it. Get your master's before you do a PhD. I came out of my. Oh, go ahead.
I would say that depends a little bit.
It can. Okay, here's what I will say. Here's my experience. I came out of undergrad. Obviously, I didn't have a whole lot of experience in geosciences. And I jumped right into a PhD program. I started taking classes and, stuff that I never, had even looked at before. A lot of people that I was in those classes with were like, I've already taken this. I was like, good for you. Other grad students having come from undergrads where they had, a geophysics program. So I was trying to get, my head above water with that. So wait, what was the question again?
Do you have specific advice around making an informed decision?
Oh, right, the master's thing. So I found that a master's would have made a complete difference. It would have been a sea change if I had done a master's before the PhD. A master's is like a trial run of your PhD. Basically, you do classes and you get out a paper, and your project is it's kind of been established for you, unless you already have an idea of what you want to do, and that's awesome. You're I don't want to say you're having your hand held. It is very, it's very, autonomous or whatever. But you're being helped along the way. Your PhD the expectations are a lot different. And if you're, trying to do all that, then you're not hitting, you want to try and hit the ground running with all this stuff. And I don't know, I felt like I had been set back a little. I should have done a master's first. And most of the people I know who had done master's first felt a lot better. As a PhD student, they felt like a lot more on top of things as a PhD student.
If there's more questions in the chat, we can take those.
There is.
One.
But
go ahead.
What were you going to say? Why did you say that it depends? About.
So, like, our PhD program is nominally 4 years, and which I feel is like it is done that way, kind of assuming that students have a master's already, because the average time to complete a PhD in the United States is like 6 years or something, 6 or 6.5. So the assumption that you can do it in 4 years, or telling people that it's a 4-year program, sort of assumes that they already have a master's degree. Whereas like other programs don't do that. So other programs are like, yeah, well, we have a 6-year program, and so it'll we're assuming that you're going to come in and take all 6 years or something. So I went straight from undergrad to a PhD, and I did that because I was like, I know I want a PhD, so I'm just going to skip the master's because I feel like I don't need it. I don't know if that was a great choice. What I think I should have done is taken a year off because I kind of got burnt out. So I wish I had taken a year off, but I don't think I should have done a master's. I think it was probably fine to just start a PhD, as long as you have a program that sort of recognizes that students are, that lets students do that. If that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah. So the question that we got from chat, is it normal to ask what funding will look like? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do it.
I would say in your first email to professors, don't pepper them with questions.
No.
But if you set up a phone conversation, so if the professor's like, oh, why don't we chat on the phone about our program or whatever, if you want to drop that in a phone call, that's absolutely normal. what's your funding situation look like? Do you have an active grant? Are you looking to take students? You could even ask, if you wanted to be cheeky, you could ask, of your students that you've graduated recently, what percentage of their time have they had to TA? You know,
some of those questions are very good for grad students.
Yeah.
So one thing that was nice with Rick, my advisor here, was that he was like, after our first conversation, he was like, I want you to talk to my current grad student who's about to defend and graduate. And that was something that I did. And some of those more like questions that are on the more sensitive side are totally fair game for grad students. They don't care.
Yeah, so like you know, when I have phone conversations with prospective students, if they ask me questions that show that they are that they've done a little research on like how grad school works, that I find very exciting, because it's like, oh, you have really high motivation, you have high like interest in coming to grad school, as opposed to, I've gotten some students on the phone and they kind of sound like they've already accepted somewhere else, and they don't even care that I was interested in their application or anything like that. And I'm like, okay, I guess we'll just move on. So, but yeah, if you get on the phone and you're like super curious and asking questions, I think that's I find that, you know, a good sign.
Well,
what advice would you give someone who is not sure whether grad school is something they want to pursue? So when I was an undergrad, I had the benefit of working in a research lab that had a lot of grad students in it. And so I knew a lot of grad students when I was an undergrad. So I feel like I got a decent picture of what grad school is like from them. So yeah, if you have the opportunity to interact with grad students like where you are currently, I think that would be really good. Like just having more interaction with grad students gives you an idea of like what their life is like, what grad school is like. You know, certainly when you're looking at specific programs and you talk to grad students in those programs, you want to ask them, you want to try and gauge like if they're happy in that program. Because that'll tell you generally like how grad students are happy or not with their program. Lisa, did you minimize your Skype window?
no, why? Did I disappear?
Do you have the stream
Oh
open?
no. Oh, I'm in the clouds now. Yeah, I don't
Did you
think I
touch anything?
minimized anything. No. I'm professional, you guys. Yeah, no, it's still here. I did see it flash though.
I don't know.
Just our professional
I can
screen.
move it. So this happened in one of the tests and then I moved it, and then 5 minutes later it went back the other way, and you were like so big you took up the whole screen. And I had to fix it, so I'm a little wary.
Please don't do that.
I'm a little wary of like, that's not what I want to do.
I don't want to be giant. I do like being in the clouds though. It's nice up here. Oh, hi.
Better? Is that better? I'm hoping it's going to go back and fix itself within 5 minutes. And if not, I will take the time to make your picture bigger, because like what had happened is I fixed it and then it got so big that you took up the entire screen, which is a little...
Yeah, don't do
It made
that.
it difficult to fix.
So now I'm little, and I hope you like Chris's class starting soon screen. This is Chris's Zoom class setup. So
I'll tell you what, why don't you read the next question and I will try to fix your
Sick.
your...
My
Yes.
image. Okay. So Julie says, I missed some of the stream, but haven't discussed this. If you haven't discussed this, how does one decide between a technical/professional master's versus a research-focused master's? This one is a really good question that I do not feel like I have the experience to answer. I had never looked into technical or professional masters. Chris, maybe you know something
So I think
about that?
it goes back to why do you want a degree? And if you want a degree because it's for a specific career, then the degree sort of relates to that. So if you want like a research position in a national lab that you think requires a PhD, you might want a PhD. If you want to stay with a master's and go into industry or private sector or something like that, you could either do a research master's or you could do like a professional master's. So for example, we have a economic geology professional master's program. And so typically they're more focused on an industry, or they're more focused on a sub-discipline. So for example, like some of the schools in Texas have oil exploration oriented technical master's programs, for example, or there's economic geology ones, or there's like water resources, hydrology based ones. So they're typically geared towards like a career / a job. So if you know you want to work in that industry and you want to say have a certain job that you kind of already know exists, then that's probably what you'd want to go for. Whereas like a research master's is far more open-ended, and you're going to work in a field, but you're going to, it's more important that you're picking up a certain set of skills that would then translate into some private sector job. So private sector job might not be directly related to what your thesis is about, for example. So like my other student Ken just completed a master's in geodynamics, and it's a lot of computational programming. So if he wanted to go into the tech industry, for example, he could do that based off of the skills that he picked up as a master's student. But it's not an industry that is related to his degree so much. That's kind of how I think of it. But I didn't go through a technical master's, and I don't teach in one, so I'm not exactly 100%.
That'll be the next guest on your stream.
Cool. Other questions in the chat?
My friend Pablo, who is in the chat now, asked if he could ask anything, which I was unnerved.
You can also ask the 8-ball. Now that it's working.
You can also ask the 8-ball. The 8-ball is potentially better at answering your questions than we are.
Unless, of course, my chat bot decided to take a nap. Nope.
Outlook.
All right.
All right.
Yes.
Think of this.
People can ask any question if they have something unrelated or tangentially related or whatever. Or we could wrap it up.
Totally. Yeah. We can also wrap it up. I think we should do like a lottery now to figure out who of the grad students, who of the people in the chat are going to be on your stream next, being interviewed next.
Well, we should figure out a topic. What would be a good topic for next time?
I have no idea. Maybe, who would be a really good person asked for one topic is job hunting, and I feel like I have an idea that Grace would be an excellent person to interview on that.
The other topic that is related is we could go into grad school application strategy. We talked a little bit about it today, but I mostly focused on like, I tried to nail down on the decision, like why might someone decide to go into grad school?
So when searching, do you prioritize the school, advisor, or department?
Are you asking me or are you asking yourself?
We had a
I mean, I see it in the chat, but were you going to answer it, or do you want me to answer
I'll ask myself. So I prioritized advisor, and then because it just, I just felt like I felt the mentorship kind of relationship in the past had gotten me a lot of experience and a lot of, I had moved forward a lot through my mentorship relationship. So I felt that finding a good advisor was really important. Department was definitely next because it seemed really important to me just to know that the department was, like at least cared a little bit about its grad program and, what kind of things it was doing to kind of, make itself unique. Like, I read about GeoDays, which is a little conference that we have for, undergrads and grad students to present their work from the geosciences department here at the University of Arizona. So there was stuff like that I wanted to make sure that the department cared and, would at least be a little bit fun to be in. And then school was definitely last, although I did it came down to Ohio State and Arizona, and I think understandably for most people, I much more wanted to be in Tucson than in Columbus, Ohio. So yeah, it might have come down to school at some point. That was my choice anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'd say advisor is most important. Think of it this way. You're going to be working with this person closely for 6 years, possibly. So you need to have someone who you can have a good working relationship with. Like if you meet this person's students and they're all like, yeah, they're really hard to get a hold of. They they just disappear for like 2 months at a time and I never hear from them. Or, they're slightly toxic or, just don't have a good mentoring style that fits with your needs, then you're probably not going to have a good experience in grad school. And so I'd say that's important. Advisor is the most important for that reason. And also because the other two are less important. So your school's reputation is not going to get you a job, basically, if you have a graduate degree. So there are schools that are not highly ranked for undergrads, for example, but are highly ranked for graduate programs. And so essentially they're considered very different, where the graduate rankings are they're much more based on the department and the department's sort of reputation, and then within that department there's advisors who are doing different levels of stuff. So advisor all the way.
Yeah, the department thing is also useful because it's like, I feel like one thing that's really useful to talk about in your personal statement and in your fellowship applications is like, what are some opportunities for collaboration? So, within the department is a pretty easy one that you can rattle off if you've got someone in the department who, does something similar to what you do or is something that's complementary, then that's super useful, or might be super useful to you. So like I don't know, maybe you like the undergrad I went to, we had one geomorphologist, and everyone else was like an ecologist. So maybe you don't want to go to the University of Maryland, Baltimore County to get your grad degree in geomorphology because there's just one person.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is, there are national academy members who are at small universities that have like 4 faculty in earth sciences or something, or
That's
other people who are really big in their field, but they're just at small universities because they want to be. So, and if you worked with them, they typically have a reputation for producing a lot of great students and graduating a lot of great students. So, if you have the chance to work with them, that would essentially offset the fact that you are at a smaller university that has a less well-known department, for example.
This is true. I did not look into whether any of the advisors I emailed were part of the National Academy of Sciences.
Yeah, but you looked at their papers, for example. So if they're publishing a lot and they're getting a lot of citations and their works are published in like good journals and stuff, really active in their field, these are all good things to look at.
Fair point.
All right. Should we wrap it up? Unless
yeah.
there are more questions. All right, Lisa. Well,
we have.
What?
Sorry. We have our Twitter handles, so you can DM us if you have any other questions. I mean, I'm happy to take other questions
when was the
from
last
anybody
time you
who
were on Twitter?
I go on occasionally. I do get notifications. All right, really, if you want to hit me up on TikTok. I literally am never not on TikTok, so let's be honest. Ask me your grad school questions through a PM on TikTok.
All right, well, thanks for being a guest. Thanks for having a discussion.
Yeah.
Choosing to go to grad school.
Happy to be here. In this beautiful desert
It's
background
calming,
you
isn't
have. It's very calming.
You could also leave questions there's comments below this video. So you could also leave questions there. I got one last week. It was big.
Or other advice if we said something where you're like, that's wrong. Well, maybe don't tell us that we're wrong, but leave something helpful in the chat or in the comments if you feel you have something to add.
All right, well, thanks, Lisa. Thanks, chat, for all the good questions. Thanks, everybody, for watching. And I'm going to try and do this every other Wednesday, maybe. We'll see. Have a good week.